Hi, welcome to Victoria Knits. I'm Victoria. I know sometimes this podcast seems like it's might be called the Russell and Nico podcast because, you know, when your grandsons live with you, you spend a lot of time taking video of them. But no, it is Victoria Knits. Today is July 10th. Wow, it's been probably 5 weeks since I podcast last. That's not too bad for me. And I wanted to give an update on Nico's eczema, my youngest grandson Nico, who will be turning 1 year old a week from today. He's getting a little relief from, they started using cortisone 10, which does have some steroid in it. It's a cream, it's an over-the-counter cream. It does have a little steroid in it. So they try to limit it to just a couple times a week. You know, it's not going to cure his eczema, but is giving him some relief, and he is finally getting some sleep. You can tell from this picture what a difference it can make for him. Still looking for something that will cure it, but for now we'll go with that. Also, I wanted to point out that I am wearing my Stofude cardigan today because it's it's summer in Montana, which is kind of springtime in Montana, really. Springtime anywhere else, maybe? We haven't gotten very, very warm here yet. So I really like my Stofude cardigan. I wear it whenever I get the chance. It's really nice. And a weather report from here in northwest Montana. We had hail on May 30th. I'm sure many of you have experienced much larger size hail, but we had not. But on June 2nd, it was great weather for knitting on that Garter Squish blanket I showed last time that I was halfway through with. And our back porch is now our outdoor playroom for the summer. And that works out really well for the boys. Once in a while, we will catch Bon Bon back there. She likes to eat the dropped bird seed from the bird feeders, and we have to scoot her on down the stairs. It's been a busy 5 weeks. It's been an especially busy last week. I had all 4 grandchildren here at once, so that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. I managed to finish that squish blanket I was working on last time that I was halfway through. The pattern is by Stephen West. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I used Red Heart Team Spirit Gold and Green. I wanted to make sure that my son and daughter-in-law could wash and dry it. I used US size 10 needles for it, and I cast on 176 stitches. I used 16 skeins for that blanket. That's 3,776 yards, or about 3,400 meters. It was nice, mindless knitting. You knit to the last 3 stitches, and then with the yarn in front, you slip the last 3, and then you knit on back. And I could knit it while my grandsons were around it, because it's easy to stop in the middle of the row. And here is my son and my daughter-in-law showing you how it turned out. I think they're really going to like it because they are big Green Bay fans. And my recently finished socks managed to get around a little bit this weekend. We toured a little bit of our corner of Montana while my son and daughter-in-law were here, and of course we visited Glacier. I'll show you some of the drive up to Glacier. It's, the park is just gorgeous. I never get tired of taking pictures of it. It's so pretty there. And yes, it was 4th of July weekend, so there was a lot of traffic, but you just need to be patient, let the tourists do their things. As Kim constantly reminded me, they may be only driving through here once. They may never come back, so let them stop and get their pictures. There were some beautiful waterfalls coming down to the road. It's just lovely there. And here are my finished winter's frost socks. The yarn is Oh Christmas Tree by Sarah Craft Yarn. Heels, Toes, and Cuffs are Camas Creek colorway by Big Sky Yarn Co. I knit these on a size 1 needle, and I am holding them up on the Going to the Sun Road. That's the name of that, the main drive that goes through Glacier National Park. I'll throw a map up and show you the drive we made right through the park. So we stayed at the Swift Current Motor Inn, which is very close to Swift Current Lake. I even managed to get in a little knitting time there. You're probably old if you recognize that, but there is no cell service in Glacier National Park, and there's very spotty Wi-Fi in some of the hotel lobbies. We also went down to Swift Current Lake, which is near to Mini Glacier Hotel. My son and my daughter both had their paddle boards with them. They did some paddle boarding while we all watched. It's such a lovely lake with those mountains behind it. It was really fun to watch them do that. We also managed to get in a hike while we were in Glacier. It started right off from the Swift Current Hotel parking lot. The first lake we stopped at was FISHERCAP Lake. My daughter Vanessa and my son Casey and Kim and I went on a hike together. My daughter-in-law and my son-in-law took care of all 4 of the children. They went and entertained them while we went off and took a nice hike. And my socks went with me. These are the Peppermint Lace Socks by DKISSINGER, free pattern on Ravelry. The yarn is from the Yarn and I. The colorway is Scarlet Tonal. I knit these on a size 0 needle. I really like the way they turned out. So that's 2 more pairs of socks for my Christmas box of socks. The hike was gorgeous. So many pretty things along the way. Just lovely. It was really fun. And we continued on our hike and we went to the next lake, which is Red Rock Lake. And then we decided we needed to get to Red Rock Falls at the end of the lake. Very much worth the hike. Such a pretty falls. And here are my Granny Jeans socks by Jan SWARBRICK. Paid pattern on Ravelry. The yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply and the colorway is 849 Fairy Lights. And Jan was nice enough to gift me this pattern that she created, a pattern she wrote up. And she wrote, her note about the pattern is, Granny Jean's socks are made as a tribute to my late mum, Jean. She loved hand knits and made many garments in her lifetime. She was thrilled to see the handmade socks making a comeback and was looking forward to wearing her own pair to remind her of her fun childhood days. These socks feature a pattern panel which is both easy to memorize and simple to knit, but produces a very interesting pattern, carried down the full length of the sock, designed for any experienced level of sock knitter. So thank you so much for gifting me that pattern, Jan. And if you are interested in knitting these, I'm going to give away 3 patterns to 3 viewers. So just leave a comment below the YouTube video if you would like to win Granny Jean's sock pattern, and I will enter everybody into that giveaway, and I'll draw out 3 names before my next podcast. So we continued on our hike. Oh gosh, it was just so pretty. It was so fun being out there with both my children and my husband. I really enjoyed that a lot. And you know how much we love visiting Glacier National Park. So we spent just the one night at the SWIETCURRENT Inn, and then the next day we had to we took the hike, and then after that we had to drive home. But on our way through the park, we got to see this beautiful moose, which my husband got out and took some great pictures of. It was quite a distance away, but it was really fun to see that. And then right after that, we managed to see this bear. It was a very small bear, but it was so pretty. I just love the color of this bear. Really fun. And then we continued on through the park, through the main road, going to the Sun Road again on the way home, and took a few pictures of my son and his wife and their 2 children along the way back. That was really, really fun. And speaking of getting outside, you know, I was raised going camping. My dad took us camping pretty much every weekend, but that doesn't mean I know a lot about camping. You know, I was young. It was mostly before high school. I think by the time I got to high school, I wasn't too interested in going with him anymore. And so I didn't probably pick up the skills I would have liked to pick up. But there's a program called the BOW program, which stands for Becoming an Outdoors Woman. And on the weekend of June 21st, I attended an event that was held here in Kalispell. It was a weekend-long event, and I really liked it. And on their website, they say, Montana's Becoming an Outdoors Woman program has been providing women the opportunity to learn outdoor skills since 1994. BOW helps break down barriers that might prevent women from fishing, hunting, or pursuing other outdoor activities. The 3-day summer BOW workshop offers classes on shooting sports, archery, canoeing, plant identification, map and compass, outdoor survival, fishing, bird identification, and many other topics. And the cost of the event I attended was $85, and that included 2 wonderful dinners and tons of snacks. Also, I just want to point out that these programs are offered in British Columbia, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Manitoba, and in all of the states in the United States except for Washington, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Mississippi, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Hawaii, and Vermont. So if you just Google the BOW program, except in those states, you'll find probably some things to do, because they have their activities all over Montana in different cities. It's a nonprofit educational program offering hands-on workshops to adult women. We encourage a supportive environment conducive to learning, making friends, and having fun. No experience is necessary, and BOW is for women of all ages and fitness levels. And I took, at the weekend event, I took 3 classes. The first one was sketching and watercolor. I'm not sure why I took that, because I don't do either one, but I really ended up enjoying it. Our instructor took us out for a short walk, and we looked for items to sketch. I mostly shot photos because that's what I'm accustomed to doing. You might remember that I've podcast from this park before. It was held at Lone Pine Park, which has a beautiful view, an overlook of Kalispell. And then we came back to the classroom, and the instructor showed us how to sketch and how to use watercolors, and on a picture of a cattail she was showing us. And after that we tried one of our own, and I'll insert the photo I took and my final painting. It was fun to do. Another activity was making a fire starting kit, and we were also treated to a raptor demonstration of rescued raptors, which included a prairie falcon, a rough-legged hawk, and this little saw-whet owl named Tink. who will be featured on the National Geographic episode about Yellowstone National Park.
So tiny now.
You excited about the ice skating?
Yes, I am very excited.
We were taught how to use our bear spray with demo canisters.
Even have like straps. You're gonna pull it up. You're gonna grab it with this hand. You're gonna use your thumb to take the safety off. You're gonna point where the bear would be, and you're gonna do it first. You don't want to just go like that.
And there was a class on learning the Native American flute. I also attended a book review of Evelyn Cameron by Lorna Milne. Cameron was a British woman who ended up homesteading and photographing in Montana. It's a great read. Probably my favorite class was the track and scat class. We had to guess the identification of these skulls and of the hides. We also got a look at deer, elk, and bear scat.
One thing about a coyote, where they live, that's another thing to look at, is where they live. Is coyote can live anywhere. And it can survive in the suburbs as well.
And the bear scat bag accidentally opened and spilled onto the table, but it was a great laugh.
It'd be finer. It'd just be all fine. And that's one way. Now, why do I say it's black bear instead of grizzly? Am I sure? What if we had a small grizzly?
So if you ever get the chance, I highly recommend those classes. The best part was making new friends, Janet, Mary, and Linda. It was really fun. I hope to see them again, and I will definitely be taking more of those classes. Another thing I've done recently was my daughter talked me into doing some natural yarn dyeing. Now I have, I've seen that done and I've thought about it, but I had never done any before. But with her encouragement, I got a little excited about it and decided to go ahead and try it. So I'm going to show you how that went. Hey, it's experimentation day. And by that, I mean it really is. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm dragging you along with me. We'll see how this all turns out. So I have gathered quite a few daffodil blooms from the spring from out in our yard. I'm going to use those. I have gathered just a few hyacinth blooms. That's all I've got for the hyacinths. Won't be very much blue. I'm putting distilled water in them, and I'll show you my setup here in a minute. Once I get this going a little bit, what I have is I have our canner out on the front porch, and this cooker unit burner stovetop, single burner stovetop thing Kim bought. He got that recently, and he was using it to do some canning. And the reason I'm out on the front porch is because I am cooking up daffodil blooms, hyacinth blooms, and pine bark to make some of my color. And I just wasn't sure how Nico might react to all that, so I thought, well, just to be on the safe side, I'll do these three outside. They're supposed to cook for at least an hour, heat up for an hour, and then, we'll strain the extra stuff out of them just to get the plain colorant. We hope it's going to be colorant, right? Well, I'll show you what happened. So I gathered some pine bark from our yard on June 1st. I put it in this container June 1st with some distilled water. They say use distilled water so the hardness of your water or the softness of your water won't affect the dyeing process. And I finally have, I don't know if you can tell, I have just a little, whoops, I just spilled some of it. I have a little bit of color in there. It's slightly brown. So I'm gonna boil that. Today is, what is it, June 28th, something like that? No, 30 days have September, April, and November. Today's the 29th. So it's been sitting there for quite a while. So I am going to put that in a jar, and we're going to boil that and see if it brings out any better of a brown. I'm not sure it will, but I got my fingers crossed. This whole process is fingers crossed, right? Okay, maybe you can see this a little bit better. Maybe. It's light brown. It's very light brown. We'll see what happens after it boils a little bit. I'm hoping, sorry. I'm hoping I get a darker brown, but we'll see. So I was a little paranoid about doing the natural dyeing, and I bought some extra canning jars just for this purpose. I am not going to use any nasty mordants or fixatives. I'm going to use alum, which should be really safe. They say it's the most common one used. Now the whole thought process behind this was my daughter, Vanessa. She's really into natural things, and I've been reading about natural dyeing. Quite a few people do it very successfully and very, very nicely. It had never really appealed to me, but it appealed to Vanessa, and the more we talked about it, the more excited I got about it, and so I thought, well, I'll at least try it once, right? So I also bought utensils just for this purpose from the secondhand store, and that's where I got the canning jars too. They're really cheap, 50 cents each or something like this, something like that. This is probably 50 cents too. I will link below to the websites I went to and read about this and tried to figure out how to do it. And so, if you're interested, you can too. Oh my gosh, the list of things you can use to dye with is pretty endless. It's pretty crazy. So they do say that one of the sites said she uses a potato masher to really mash up her flower bulbs and stuff like that. And so I'm going to spend a little time doing that right now. So I have been saving up the daffodil blooms, and I put them in the freezer as I picked each one of them because it said you can use spent daffodil blossoms. They didn't have to be fresh or, freshly bloomed. They could have already kind of faded. So I saved up a bunch of those, and I put them in a baggie, a Ziploc bag, and kept them in the freezer so they wouldn't get moldy or anything. I did the same thing with the hyacinth flowers, which we had growing out front. I also saved up a bunch of avocado pits and skins and kept them in the freezer as I saved them. So, and then my husband Kim bought beets for me and spinach. So the spinach, the avocado, and the beets, I felt very comfortable cooking inside the house, of course. So they have all been boiling in some distilled water, an amount doubled supposedly to the amount of items you have. Like you put twice the amount of water as you do your product, your avocado pits or whatever. So they boiled for an hour, and then I'll let them cool off. I'm going to do the same with the hyacinths, the pine bark, and the daffodils, but I'm doing them outside just to keep that odor out of the house. And then they will all cool off. I'm going to go wind up my yarn in the front yard the way I always do, and then I will dye the yarn after all the dye baths have cooled down enough that it's safe to put yarn in them. Yeah, we'll see how this works out. It'll be interesting. And of course I couldn't just dye a skein of yarn, all one color. You know me. So I will show you what my plan is. Okay, this is my color scheme. I chose beets, pine bark, spinach instead of red onion, avocado, daffodils, and hyacinths. Now I allowed beets to be the biggest amount, the longest part, because I knew that'd probably be the easiest one to get color from. And as you can see, I decided to do self-striping. Don't, you know, yeah, I should have kept it simple, but, you know, if you're going to go for it, right? So I also decided I would dye a skein for Russell. So I asked him what he wanted, and this is what he colored for me. So Russell will be getting a skein that is dyed in the beet jizz. I couldn't get him to add any more colors. He liked it the way it was, so that's what we're going with. So I've got a while to wait. Got my timer set for at least an hour. Yeah, at least an hour on the daffodils and the pine bark and the hyacinths. So yeah, they're going to be heating for a while, and then they're going to have to cool off, right? And so I thought I'd sit out here and knit. I keep an eye on it. I don't want it sitting out here by itself, you know. Anyway, so the reason I hadn't tried dyeing with natural ingredients is because from the things I saw, nothing was very vivid. And you know me, if you've watched this podcast much, you know I really like vivid colors, case in point. But, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine, Britt, who just came by again. You may have remembered him from last year. He was here hunting morel mushrooms, and he was back, and he just stayed with us a few days this time. But he said he has seen some very vividly colored, naturally dyed yarn. And I was kind of wondering as I was sitting here, how many of you have tried natural dyeing, and what was the result? Did you like it? Would you do it again? I know one of the things people like to do is they like to just use the natural things that exist around their home, because that seems you know, more natural. And I had looked up lupins, because we have a lot of lupins, and I thought, oh, that'd be a great blue or purple color, but no, they supposedly dye things green. Which is another point. There seems to be, there would seem like you would have to do quite a bit of experimentation to find out what color different things would give you. And I'm not sure I'm not sure I want to spend that much money experimenting on the yarn I dye. But then, you know, I'm not a professional yarn dyer, so if I were, then I would probably be experimenting all the time, wouldn't I? I would imagine. So yeah, I'm sitting out here waiting for my stuff to cook, and then it'll have to cool. And while it's cooling, I think I will wind up my yarn and measure it out so I can get my stripes. We'll see how this all goes. All right, here's what I got for my so far final colors. The beet, of course, looks pretty good. It's nice and bright, dark. Avocado looks kind of pinky, kind of brown. Spinach, it's a little green. We'll see how it turns out. Hyacinths, I got basically no color. Looks kind of green. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to cook up some frozen blueberries I have for the blue. There's the daffodil. I don't know, kind of a murky something. It's supposed to be yellow. We'll see. Pine bark actually looks kind of brown. It looks kind of interesting. I'm okay with the pine bark. I think that might turn out okay. But yeah, I think I'm going to cheat. Well, you can call it cheating or not, whatever. And I'm going to cook up some blueberries for my blue, because the hyacinths probably just didn't have enough of those. Not much color there. We'll see what happens. All right. So I did some raspberries and blueberries together. We'll see how that works. There's the beet. Looks really pretty. I hope the raspberry and blueberries turn out bluer than I think they're going to turn out. But we'll see. And here is Russell's yarn in its bath with the beet juice. It's looking really, really pretty. I think I'm going to like this one quite a bit. And here is the yarn in the pot outside. I've got it in a canning pot on this little burner. It's kind of noisy. But I'm going to cook them for at least 20, maybe 30 minutes, bring them to a simmer and let them cook. I put the alum in there and I put some cream of tartar in there. So we'll see how they turn out. I just had to guess. It tells you how much alum to put in per a quarter pound of yarn, but you know, I've got 6 jars there, so I just had to kind of guess. And I'm going to leave them overnight to let the color deepen, and tomorrow we'll see what happens. Yeah, we can. Hi everybody.
Hi everybody.
I wanted to show the yarn I dyed with the natural dyes before I got it all skeined up. So here's the one I did with beets. This will be Russell's. Would you like some socks out of that?
Yeah.
All right. And I really like the color this turned out. I think it's really, really pretty. What do you think?
Good.
Is it a good color?
Yeah, it is. It's pink too.
It is pretty pink. But look how different it is from this one.
What?
So this is from the same batch of beet juice, only this yarn is 90% merino wool and 10% nylon. Very different. Very different.
Very different?
So obviously it makes a big difference what kind of material you're using. Russell, what kind of flowers are these?
Lupin.
Lupins, that's right.
That's a pretty lupin.
Okay, so this
We
is...
should pick one out for Mama tomorrow.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So this is the beet
Yeah.
from the
Nah.
yarn I did the self-striping on. This is the beet. The next color is
What?
the pine bark. This is pine bark. You can see it's kind of a pretty brown. Very light brown. Very light brown, isn't it? But it's pretty.
Whoa.
Careful. The next color, this was supposed to be green spinach. It's not green, is it? It's a very pale yellow.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's not green,
But
is it? But it's pretty. Is it
Can
yellow?
I go pick one out for Mama?
In a minute. In a minute. The next color I did was avocado. This is how the avocado turned out. Kind of a paley brown pink. It's okay. I'm not thrilled with it. Not sure I'll do avocados again.
But this one is not a lupin.
No, it's not. Then, oh, gotta sit down, honey. Then, color I did really like was this one. Look at that beautiful yellow.
Whoa!
Yeah, isn't that nice? That's from the daffodils. This is from the daffodils. Does that look like daffodils?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty? I think that's really, really nice.
I can't reach that grass.
Okay. And then the last color, this is the berries.
Very
I had some
pretty.
blueberries and raspberries mixed.
Nope. Very
Some stuff I just took out of the
pretty.
freezer.
Nope.
And
Very pretty.
and that's how that turned out, and I really like that too. I think
Yep.
the daffodils
Very
and the
pretty.
berries would have been a really pretty combination, and I'll probably do those again.
Pretty.
What do you think?
Good.
You like it?
Did you go out there and make those berries all by yourself?
Yeah, kind of. So I'm anxious to skein this up and see how it how it all turns out. And so hopefully that's what I'll be able to show you next. Thanks, Russell.
Then what?
Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye. Now can I pick out one for Mommy?
Yes, you can. And here's the one that was dyed with the beets all caked up. I think it looks really pretty. Not sure what I'm going to make out of this. Since it is 100% merino wool, we'll see what happens. And this is the self-striping one. Pretty muted colors, not usually my choice, but I think it's really pretty. I think I'm looking forward to see how this is going to knit up. Now you may be hearing a chicken. I got one of the chickalettas nearby here. So here's how far I've gotten on that sock. The heel's finished. Yeah, there she goes, chickaletta. The pattern is Impossible Girl Socks by Madeline Gannon. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I really like the way they're turning out. I love the way these are self-striping. I was a little iffy about trying that, and I'll show you which colors came from which plants. And I think that's really interesting, and I do plan on doing some more of this. It was fun. I'm really pleased with the colors I got. I think they turned out really nice. And Sally and I finally got together so I could share her crafty story. She is on Ravelry, she is Crochet Stir, and on Instagram, she is Sally's Backyard. She lives in Ohio, and her story is, my fiber story began when I was a little girl, around 9 or 10. My aunt taught me to embroider, and that was a craft I continued into my 20s. Another aunt tried to teach me to crochet when I was 10, but it didn't quite catch on. Fast forward to 2009. My youngest daughter was a senior in high school, and I decided I needed something to occupy my time when she went off to college. I'd always wanted to learn crochet, so I bought a book, some acrylic yarn, and a plastic hook and taught myself. I picked it up right away, and I have crocheted quite a number of things. A few years ago, I experimented with dyeing yarn. I mainly used food coloring or plant materials. In 2017, with the help of YouTube videos and a free crafty class, I taught myself to knit. Knitting didn't come as naturally to me as crochet, but I'm getting better at it. Finally, this year, I bought a spinning wheel, and I'm currently teaching myself to spin, again with the help of YouTube. I'm always looking for a challenge, and this year I want to improve on my knitting. Maybe try color work and knitting socks. And also I want to continue learning to spin. It's a lot harder than it looks. So Sally has 331 projects on her Ravelry page. I suggest you go there and look it up. She's only been knitting for 2 years, but look at this Juno jumper for her little dog, and this grain shawl by Tin Can Knits. Also these no pattern oddball fingerless mitts, the steam and brass shawl, and this crocheted lotus shawlette. She has made children's sweaters, pot holders, vests, cardigans, Christmas ornaments, scarves, throws, bags, hats, and stuffed toys. And I love this woven pot holder. The pattern is Weaved HOTPAD by KIMBERLY LANGLOIS, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. So, any volunteers for my next episode? That'd be really nice. I was thinking maybe Sylvia, Gwen, Katie. That's just a few people I'm throwing out there. Thank you so much, Sally. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. So I do have a couple other whips going. The first one is this, I'm trying the souvenir shawl pattern. That is by Maria Samuelsson. It's a paid pattern on Ravelry. I saw this pattern on Little Drops of Wonderful. Allie is knitting this, or she may be finished with it by now. I haven't looked at her latest podcast. Isn't that pretty? I like the way this is going, and look at the lovely yarn I'm using. This yarn is called Dream in Color Grand Canyon Centennial. Isn't that pretty? And this yarn was sent to me by a viewer. Thank you, Sandy. It's really, really nice of you. She asked me if she could send me something, and she sent me not only that beautiful yarn, but she also made this hat for me. Take a look at this. Is that cute? Don't you love that? Isn't that pretty? And she told me what the pattern was, so I'll put that around the bottom because I've saved the pattern. I think that's a really cute hat. She also sent a pom-pom to go with the hat, which I intend fully to put on there. It's really cute. She also sent me these cute little stitch markers, which I'm already using. And she sent me some various dry packets for drink, tea, cocoa, and some electrolyte, some powdered electrolyte. Look at those little sheep. Aren't those adorable? Thank you so much, Sandy. Really, that was like the sweetest thing. I was blown away by that. And Sandy said, I asked her if I could mention her on my podcast. She says, of course you may mention the gift box on your podcast, but please be sure to say that I sent it to you as a thank you for the inspiration of your lovely podcast. That's like so nice of someone to say to me. I really, really, really appreciate it. It really is. It's beyond words how sweet that is. And you know, we can't go on without talking about Ravelry now, can we? It needs to be talked about, I think. Their new policy. I was pretty surprised when it came out. And I think I'm like everyone else. I just wish they would have banned all politics off their site. You know, that would have made more sense to everyone, I think. It's not up to me what they do. It's their site. It's a private thing. They can do whatever they like. I think that would have made us all more comfortable and happier, I think, and probably would have seemed more fair. But, you know, we all know life's not fair, right? So I am not going to leave Ravelry. I understand I definitely get it if you've decided to make that leap. You know, that's your choice. So if you, I will make sure that all my contests, you know, my giveaways, not contests, my giveaways or whatever I do, that you can, there will always be an option to enter below the YouTube video, not just on Ravelry, because, you know, I get that. I get it. Also, I just want to remind everybody, links to everything will be below this podcast in the YouTube video, also on my Ravelry group, Victoria Knits site. You can always email me at vjwilliams54@gmail.com. So you're always welcome to leave me a note about that, about anything. Email me about anything. Thank you, Sandy. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I decided to start shawl number 2 because I'm kind of crazy. So we'll see how this works out. This is the second. I barely got this going. And then I got distracted. That's how it is, right? We all get distracted with our knitting. I think this one's going to be really pretty. It doesn't, you know, it's not complicated. It looks more complicated than it is. I have found it fairly easy to knit on. I just got distracted with the natural dyeing, and I wanted to get going with that and get that sock going. So that's what I've done. And this pattern is Light Shift by Hillary Engbritson. Not sure. I'll put it across the bottom of the screen. It's a paid pattern. The yarn is Odine Wools. It's coming apart a little bit here, but it's not too bad. DK, this is not that. No, this is not that. This is Vitalana Dream Pimento. This was from Knit Crate, and the second one I'm going to use is Audine Wool's Psy DK colorway Leaf Eater. I've been trying to use up some of my yarn at home, right? I think we're all doing that. So I quit Knit Crate, and I started looking at the yarn I had, and I looked for a pattern for it, and I think I'm going to like the way this is going to turn out. We'll see. It's a wrap shawl, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I finished that book on Queen Victoria that I was working on last time. As I said, I didn't have that much further to go. I'll just read one little passage from it this time. By the end of Victoria's reign, England was drawing closer to becoming a democracy. 2/3 of men could now vote, although still no women, and the monarch's powers were substantially diminished. As Queen, Victoria carried out a job undergoing continual redefinition. She worked furiously to maintain her powers, but did so in private. She was a clever and forceful political calculator, but she cannily presented herself to her subjects as an ordinary mother trotting about Scotland. This was evidence of her sharp political intuition. She knew the country loved her when she appeared to be one of them, but with her ministers, she clung tenaciously to her unconventional powers. She died on January 22nd, 1901, at the age of 81. Britons found Victoria's death oddly unnerving, as though the cornerstone of a building had slipped and they were all walking tilted on a new earth. Grief was mingled with alarm. Some, who stood mute and cold, craning for a glimpse of the passing coffin, were heard muttering, "God help us." Arthur Benson puzzled at the peculiar personal grief. People wept openly in public, and even Republicans who wanted an end to the monarchy found they were affected. Florence Nightingale ensured her entire house was in full mourning, wanting to do something to show that one cares. One woman who went to Hyde Park to watch the procession pass by wrote, "Intense crowd, never saw anything like it, all silent." The passing of the previous monarch, William IV, by contrast, had barely been noted. No one cried at his funeral. So it was a very interesting book. I really liked it. I found out that her children censored a lot of her journals and writings and letters. She had a couple of relationships. The one with John Brown, probably everybody, most people are probably familiar with that one. She also had a relationship with someone called Abdul Karim, who was known as the Munshi. And her family really disliked and distrusted him, and she often claimed they were being bigots, and they, likely they were. Very fascinating story, book about her. She had quite the life, so I definitely recommend it. And speaking of Queen Victoria, here's Russell and I to do our little announce the winners of our giveaway.
Hi, Russell. Hi, Russell. Can you say hi to everybody? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. All right, we're going to announce the winner. Okay. Of the Montana giveaway. Okay. Okay, so the winner is, can you say Maureen? Can you say it loud? Maureen! Maureen, you're the winner of the Montana giveaway. Yeah! Okay. And Maureen said if she ever manages to make it to Montana, she would love to have some knit time and a glass of wine with me, and I would love that too, Maureen. Maureen.
And the winner of the Queen giveaway is...
What?
Sarah. Can you say that loud?
Sarah!
Sarah! Box Knits, you're my winner again. And Sarah said she's the queen of everything. I wish. Ha ha ha. Congratulations, Sarah. Well, that was fun, right? Congratulations to the winners. Sarah, I have your address, and Maureen, I would ask you to send me an email message or message me on Ravelry, and so I could get your address from you and send out your prizes. So, two podcasters I regularly watch, Allie of Little Drops of Wonderful and Lisa of Knitting by the Sea podcast, have been furthering diversity in our crafting community, and they've been doing it by featuring women of color in their podcasts as designers or podcasters. So if you're looking to expand your horizons, I suggest you check out one of those podcasts. They've been doing a great job at it. You know, I would participate, but they're doing a good job. They've got a huge viewership. I do not. Not that I would be happy to help do that, but I definitely recommend you check them out. You might find, I have found some new podcasters and designers and started following them, which I really enjoy, and I appreciate them going to that work to do that. Also, I recommend another podcast I've been watching is Rachel on the Yarn Equals Joy podcast. I'll link her below. Hi, Rachel. She's been fun to watch. And she recommended the last shawl she knitted was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. She also recommended the show Dead to Me on Netflix. Has anybody else watched that? I haven't really been watching much TV lately. I've gone through a lot of it, and you know, last time I shared a lot of shows, but this time I haven't been watching much. Stranger Things just came up on Netflix again, and we just watched the first episode. Is as far as we've made it with that so far. But Dead to Me on Netflix, it'll keep you guessing. I look forward to the next what do they call that? I look forward to the next season of that. That'll be pretty cute. And the Off the Porch segment, oh, you know, it's really hard to limit it. It's summertime. Stuff's happening all the time in our yard, and it's really entertaining to watch. Sometimes I wish I could just sit out on the back porch and the front porch, you know, clone myself so I wouldn't miss anything going by. That's just not possible. Also, I need to knit, and I need to help watch my grandchildren. So it's been busy, but we catch what we can, and I'm going to show it to you here. So thanks so much for watching. I managed to get one little picture here of myself with the 3 older grandchildren. Nico was still in bed, but we've all seen plenty of pictures of Nico. But anyway, it was so much fun having them here. I just really enjoyed it. And thanks again for watching. Goodbye from Montana. Hope I see you next time. Thank you. The rufous hummingbird is one of the feistiest hummingbirds in North America. They are relentless attackers at flowers and feeders, going after even the large hummingbirds of the Southwest. They breed farther north than any other hummingbird. They often come to hummingbird feeders. I make my sugar water mixture about 1/4 cup of sugar per 1 cup of water, and food coloring is not necessary, and granulated table sugar is your best choice. I change my hummingbird feeders at least once a week. You got to do that before they get cloudy or discolored, because during hot weather, sugar water ferments rapidly and can produce toxic alcohol. The rufous hummingbird makes one of the longest migratory journeys of any bird in the world as measured by body size. It makes a roughly 3,900-mile trip one way from Alaska to Mexico. The oldest recorded rufous hummingbird was a female, and she was at least 8 years and 11 months old when she was recaught and re-released during banding operations in British Columbia. The calliope hummingbird is a tiny wonder. It's the smallest breeding bird in Canada and the United States. This small hummingbird takes its name from Calliope, one of the muses of Greek mythology, who represented eloquence and epic poetry. The tiny calliope is often chased by larger hummingbirds, particularly the more aggressive rufous, which we witness all the time. There are constant fights over the hummingbird feeders, even though we have 4 of them around our house. From what I can find online, this is a juvenile black-chinned hummingbird. Really sweet looking though. So one of the things that fascinates me about hummingbirds is those beautiful iridescent feathers, right? Don't we all love looking at those? And after reading about them online, I realized that these are structural colors, not pigment, which means they are reflected by microscopic structural features of the feather's surface. The surface of the feather is composed of layers of tiny air bubbles. When the light strikes the surface of the feather, some light is reflected from the outer surface, and some light travels through the air bubble and reflects off the inner surface. Light with wavelengths that match the thickness of the air bubble are amplified as the reflected waves from the inner surface match up and combine with the reflected waves from the outer surface. Other wavelengths are out of sync when they combine after reflecting off both surfaces, and they cancel out. This is the fundamental process that creates the very pure and brilliant colors we see on hummingbirds. And I will add some links below the podcast where you can look up some more info about the hummingbirds, because I find them really fascinating. And in this tree is where one of the hummingbirds normally perches, on this little bare branch, and it protects its feeder and runs over and chases away other hummingbirds. Now let's see if you can keep an eye on this hummingbird. You'll get an idea of how small it really is. sock? Let's see. Nice job.
Done.
Thank you, Russell.
He's grilled.